This next video is for specifically for ushers who are serving in positions 1 and 4. And just to give a quick reminder of that, if this is the layout of our sanctuaries, ushers 1 and 4 are serving the organ transept or the pulpit transept, respectively. To begin with, once you've met with your quarterback, once you've gotten your assignment, you've gotten your name tags from the usher room, you've prayed as a team, your very first assignment is to head into the sanctuary and be prepared to start seating congregants as they come in. Because you're going to be seated or standing at the front of the sanctuary, your actual initial job is to be intentionally and warmly inviting people forward. If you see people walking in the back door and it looks like they want to try and hide in the very last pew, especially if you know them, you want to be giving them a warm wave and welcome them towards the front, and then you want to invite them to have a seat, and maybe specifically invite them to have seats in the chairs in the front of the pews, or any of the pews, any of the spaces that you have room for them. As our numbers increase, we're finding that, again, part of our culture as seating ushers is going to be getting comfortable with and learning how to be appropriate and asking people to move over and make space. This is especially true for those, if you know people who are by themselves and tend to like to hug the end of the pew. Please, it is part of your job to invite them to scoot over so that others who are coming in after them don't have to step over them and don't feel like it's an imposition to try and fill in the space that's next to them. Additionally, we want to make sure that we're communicating with our back ushers about how much space there is left. This is especially important as the service is about to begin. The last 3 or 5 minutes is when the majority of our people arrive. So we want to make sure that certainly the greeting ushers at the doors have an understanding of how much space is available left in your transepts, respectively. Once the service has begun, you can remain attentive to those who are coming in late, keeping, again, an awareness of the spots that are available so people aren't awkwardly searching for spots as they come in. But you can also be praying. Be praying for the service, be praying for those that you've just seated, be praying for your worship assistant or the preacher as the preaching is happening. The next major responsibility you have as a front usher is taking the count of your section. And so we've moved, our counting is now taking place during the prayers of the people after the sermon is finished. And that's in large part because people continue to come all the way up through the middle of the sermon. We want to get as accurate a count as we can. The count is important because that determines how many communion wafers are consecrated for each service, and it also keeps track of our numbers for the day. So you need to be counting the people in your transepts and to make sure that that information is accurately reflected on the congregational count sheet, which your quarterback will be walking around and making sure that you have tallied up properly. That quarterback is going to ensure that usher number 1 receives that sheet by the time the confession is said. It is after the confession is the peace, the absolution and the peace, and during the peace is when usher number 1 hands that piece of paper to the worship assistant, and the worship assistant uses the information on that paper to prepare communion for the day. Immediately after the announcements are given, the offertory begins, and that's when we take our collection from the congregation. So again, ushers 1 and 4 will take their collection from the transepts. Once your transept collection is finished, you can move immediately to the back of the sanctuary and condense your 2 collections into a single plate. That will likely be the plate that is walked forward and given to be blessed at the conclusion of the offertory before communion begins. The next final major responsibility you have is during communion. At communion, you are the primary director of traffic, especially to the side rails. We take our positions during the Lord's Prayer, silently and quietly up by the side pillars. But all four ushers and the quarterback are to walk to the pillars at the front, and as soon as the celebrant offers the final words, the gifts of God for the people of God, take them in remembrance that Christ died for you, and feed on him in your hearts with thanksgiving. You move to your positions. As front ushers, your responsibility is to release the transepts, beginning with the front row, and directing them to the communion rail. Once your transept is completely empty and the center ushers begin releasing people from the pews, your responsibility is to make sure that the side rails are consistently filled. And this is a surprising challenge. You will need to wave, you will need to get their attention, you will need to be very dramatic and take initiative. But a lot of this is going to need to happen to get people, and then you can point them to the side railing. Otherwise, people will continue to wait until the very first spots in the center are open, and will refuse to take communion until then. So it's seems unnecessarily complicated and challenging, but it is very much a crucial role so that communion can go as quickly as possible. After the service completes, please take a few moments to tidy up your area as you're able. Please assist the quarterback in doing the counting the collection and putting it in the safe if you're asked to do that. Check in, provide any feedback about the day, any areas of confusion, or maybe some helpful tips and suggestions about training or things that might need to change, and then pray out as a team before you head out for the rest of your morning. So these are the main responsibilities of Ushers 1 and 4. I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions.